Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the Purpose Pod. This is episode number 20, and we have all sorts of shades of green today. As you can see, if you're watching the YouTube video, I got a Lime 3D energy drink right here on my lap. That is a green can. We have forest green pants on right now. I also have the old Kelly Green Eagles logo hat on right now. And I walked into work one day, and there was multiple people wearing the shades of green. It was like olive green, forest green, you name it. They had it on. Later that day, I went into work, and I didn't even realize when I was going to work out, I was wearing a green Eagles hat. And again, there was just shades of green. And then on top of that, this week, the Eagles announced that they're going to be turning over their uniforms in 2023 as alternates, not full-time, to the old school Kelly Green uniforms. And I hate that they're not doing it for the 2022 season, but the NFL is only allowing 2 helmets, which is the dumbest rule, being that like Maryland and Oregon, they have new helmets every week. So it's really silly that a multi-billion-dollar corporation can't allow franchises to have more than 2 helmets. But with that being said, the Eagles will be having their black helmets with their black jerseys in the 2022 season. And I'm really hoping that those black helmets are matte black and not shiny black, because the shiny black with the black uniforms, I just don't think would look right. I think it would just look so much crisper and cleaner and more minimalist, if you ask me, if it is a matte black color. And then in 2023, we are getting back the Kelly Green uniforms, which is going to be so dope. And I've been looking for a sick Randall Cunningham, like authentic jersey. So if anyone knows of one, let me know. Mitchell & Ness is completely sold out, especially the ones with the patches. I'm trying to buy one with patches on it, but those are completely sold out on Mitchell & Ness. So if you guys know anything, let me know. Can't find any on eBay right now. And the last shade of green that we have today is talking about Eliot Shorr-Parks, James Seltzer, and the Go Birds Pod. Go Birds Pod is my number one favorite Eagles podcast. It has been this entire time for the last 5 or 6 years now since it started. And then another individual who was on that podcast, his name is John Barchard, has his own Eagles podcast now after he left 94 Whip years ago. He's with Vince Quinn, and Vince Quinn and John Barchard have their own podcast called Bell and the Birdmen. So those are my 2 favorite Eagles podcasts. But I want to react today to something that Eliot Shorr-Parks said something at the very end of the Go Birds Pod, which was most recently. And he had a philosophical question for James and for the listeners. And he asked a question and said, are we ever a finished product? Like, if we're never finished, aren't we technically finished? And I'm going to play that clip for you guys in a little bit after I get into the co-star meeting and I get into the health tip for the day. But I'm going to play the clip from their podcast so that way you could hear his delivery on the question. And you're going to hear James and Eliot go back and forth on it, having a disagreement. James does not agree with him too much on this stuff, on this philosophical question that he presented. But I have a way in which I kind of agree with Eliot, and I'm going to relate it back to a Rubik's Cube. But again, we just have shades of green this entire week. But as always, we get this podcast started off with the co-star app, the philosophical, and we're pulling from the astrology as well. Maybe we can combine the two and see if they have any meaning together today. And then I'm going to give you guys that health tip and that health topic that I give to you the last 2 episodes and everything that we're doing moving forward regarding that. And then we'll get into that main topic. So let's get it rolling today. So now starting off with the co-star app, let's open it up. What we have today is there is not one single truth. There is only an increasing complexity. I love that. We talk about this several times on the podcast about people being complex, peeling back the onions or the layers of the onion so that way you could understand people on a deeper level. And even when you find out like a single truth, there's a lot of times going to be other context or other layers to it that could kind of change the meaning of that single truth that you discovered. So really getting into the health topic today, that kind of rolls perfectly. And I actually wrote these down. I want to make sure I'm getting them all because there's actually going to be multiple health topics today. This is a really interesting topic. So we're talking about fat burning zones. So when I got into my Tier X coaching and we did VO2 max test. Oh, wait. Before I get into this, I want to give you, Mr. Eliot Shorr-Parks, if you're listening to this, a quick shout out, because I know you said that your wedding was 100 days away. That was probably 4, 5, 6, or 7 days ago, something like that. So I know you're inching closer to that wedding. I am a Tier X coach here at Equinox in Dallas, Texas, and I know what I'm doing in terms of lifestyle coaching, weight loss, nutrition, exercise. So if you are here listening to this message and you want help with your wedding, I'm here, man, to help you out. You have done a lot for me, both you and James, from a listener standpoint. You guys provide so much entertainment, so much knowledge, and I want to be able to pay it back to you. So from a health coach perspective, I can certainly help you out. And if you want it leading into your wedding, let me know. I am here to help. And I just want to say thank you to you guys, because like I said, you guys have provided so much value to me. So anything that I can do for you guys, let me know. So with that being said, I want to talk about fat burning zones. And when I was doing the VO2 max testing for Tier X, when you would get the results back, it would say that this client's lipid metabolism zone was between, let's say, 107 and 115 beats per minute. So what it was saying is you can burn fat most efficiently at this working heart rate zone. So for a while, I was like, wait a second, that doesn't sound right, because if you want to burn fat, it's about energy in, energy out on a basic level. Like, if you want to burn fat, like body fat, you need to go on the Stairmaster and go on the treadmill, whatever it is that you prefer, whatever means of cardio that you like, and you have this energy output. And sometimes you could be working in heart rate zones between 145 to 160 beats per minute if you're a male. If you're a female and you're less conditioned, male or female, you could be working upwards of 175 to 185 beats per minute, really working yourself. But because you're really working yourself, you're going to be having this larger energy expenditure. So as I'm doing the VO2 max test and kind of going through the curriculum, it says the best fat burning zone is at these lower heart rate zones. And I'm like, how does that make sense? Because if you're working at a lower heart rate zone, you're going to be burning less calories, right? And if you want to burn, just say 400 calories in that cardio session, what would take you, let's say 400 calories, say you burn 10 calories a minute. So let's say it takes 40 minutes to burn that 400 calories at a 10 speed on the Stairmaster, right? And let's say your heart rate zone is actually about 160. Well, now if you do 110 to 115 or 120 beats per minute, because that's your fat burning zone, you're now going to have to increase the length of your cardio just to meet that energy expenditure demands. So my whole life, I've been taught, like, yeah, Stairmaster, best bang for your buck, put it for a certain caloric, goal that you want to hit and go for it. But then when I got into the Tier X VO2 max testing, it was saying your best fat burning zone is between this heart rate zone. And I was so confused. And actually what it turns out to be is, and this is something that I just learned recently, like, I always knew the energy expenditure output. I always thought that was true. And guess what? It is. But there's other details. So with the lipid metabolism zones from a VO2 max test, what it's saying is the actual substrate itself. So the food that you consume that have these fats that your body is storing, your body through those working heart rate zones of like 110 to 120 changes per person, your body's going to get better at burning the actual substrate itself more efficiently. Not body fat, but the actual substrate itself. Because if we remember, on a basic level, carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram. Proteins have 4 calories per gram. Fat is more than double, has 9 calories per gram. And because there is 9 calories per gram, there is going to be a larger requirement of oxygen to break down that substrate. And when you're considering carbohydrates and protein doesn't really get used as an energy source. So carbohydrates get used fairly quickly because they don't require a lot of oxygen to break down that substrate. So a lot of people who aren't active, who don't have a higher skeletal muscle mass, where their oxygen to carbon dioxide exchange ratio isn't good, they're going to struggle to burn off fat efficiently. The substrate, not body fat, but the substrate, right? So that's what that zone is indicating, is that if you work at this, we call this Netflix cardio. If you work at this lower training zone, you might have to do a 60-minute session as opposed to 30, right? You might have to do 60, but when you hop off that treadmill, and this is especially good for endurance athletes who are going to run longer miles, right? Where they're going to be utilizing, their body's going to start utilizing at that lower training zone fat as a fuel source as opposed to carbohydrates, because it's really, as an athlete or a person who's active with exercise, when you start getting to those higher heart rate zones, that your body starts to utilize more carbohydrates for that quicker source of energy output. But for a long sustainable run or a long sustainable cardiovascular event, your body's going to want to utilize that fat as a substrate to burn as energy. So that was like a confusing thing. And then as I was part of this curriculum, I was learning that it said, and I asked this question, one of the guys' notes said that if you want to increase your fat burning efficiency, do fasted cardio. But one thing that I know to be true through all my years of dieting and bulking, and changing my body composition, doing the Stairmaster, getting into deep states of cardio, was there's actually no difference between fasted cardio and cardio when you're not fasted. And this is a key point, because this is something that a lot of people struggle with, that they think because they're doing cardio fasted that they are going to burn off more body fat, but that's not true. At the end of the day, we have a caloric intake and a caloric expenditure, and it's all about that energy balance. And if you're meeting a net negative of energy balance, right? So that's how you're going to end up losing weight. And when you're talking about this fasted cardio, at the end of the day, like 3,500 calories equals 1 pound. And to lose 1 pound a week, you have to be in a overall caloric deficit of 3,500 calories over the course of 7 days. So you do the math, that is 500 calories per day that you have to be in a deficit, whether that's from your overall food intake or from doing cardio and burning off extra calories, right? So at the end of the day, doing fasted cardio is not going to help you lose more weight, but what fasted cardio will do regarding that lipid metabolism zone or that fat burning zone, what the cardio low intensity steady state is going to do is it is going to help your body become more efficient at burning the substrate fat itself, whether that's eating it from egg yolks or eating that from almonds or olive oil or MCT oil, avocados, you name it, flax seeds, right? Things of that nature, your body's going to become more efficient at breaking down that intake. But from the actual stored fat and belly fat and triceps fat, leg fat, whatever, love handles, whatever it is, your body is not going to lose those areas faster because you're doing faster cardio. They're not going to lose it faster because you are working at a lower heart rate zone and it has better fat burning ability. No, at the end of the day, it's all about energy output. So really keep that in mind when you hear those things. The second thing that I want to talk about, because I just had a cardio session today, was the fact that I was doing cardio with a hoodie on. And I like doing cardio with a hoodie on personally because I like the way I feel in the hoodie and the way I'm sweating and feeling the sweat from the cotton that's absorbed into the cotton, touch my skin. I feel like I'm working. I have my hood on. I feel kind of discreet. I feel like I'm AWOL, like no one actually knows I'm there, even though they could see me. I feel like I'm undercover. So I like that, and it really gets you into a zone, like a tunnel vision. But at the end of the day, when you are actually doing cardio, trying to lose body fat, you are going to burn more calories if you are doing it without a hoodie on. Now, at the end of the day, if you link your Apple Watch, which I'm wearing one right now, if you link that up to the Stairmaster or the treadmill and it says 400 calories, it's not going to matter whether you burn that 400 calories with a hoodie on or a not hoodie on, but you are going to burn calories more efficiently and faster when you are actually not wearing a hoodie. And the reason for this is because one of the functions of the human body is evaporating that sweat from your skin. And when you wear a hoodie, you take out that ability for your body to evaporate, which therefore kind of shuts off that system. And then you are burning calories a little bit slower at that point. So if you actually take your sweatshirt off and you do cardio just like a regular t-shirt on, you're actually going to find yourself sweating a little bit more. Maybe you hit your caloric demand or caloric goal a little bit faster because you're doing it without a hoodie on, and that body's function of evaporation is going to allow you to burn calories a little bit faster. So keep that in mind next time you do cardio with a hoodie on. If you like to do it with a hoodie on, by all means, but just keep in mind, you are not burning more body fat by having a hoodie on. You're actually going to hinder your ability to burn body fat from an overall caloric burn standpoint because you're taking out that evaporation. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I am really enjoying starting this podcast off with the CoStar app and starting this podcast off with the health tip. You know, I love what I do, and I'm very fortunate to say that because I feel like not everyone has the ability to say that they love what they do. And because I love what I do, I want to be able to share that with you guys. If you go to my Instagram, I do post like exercise clips. But for those listeners, for all you listeners that are tuning in, I want you to be able to walk away from here with like a plethora of value and be able to like rewind, re-listen. So that way you could be like, I'm really digesting this information that he's giving to us. But with that being said, let's hop into the main topic today regarding James Seltzer and Eliot Shorr-Parks. Eliot Shorr-Parks delivering a philosophical question to James regarding, you know, whether or not, because we're unfinished products as humans, but because we're always unfinished, are we ever finished? So I'm going to play that clip from Go Birds Radio, Go Birds Pod. They do the Go Birds Radio on Saturdays in the actual studio for all of Philadelphia to listen on 94 WHIP. And then they also do throughout the week 1 or 2 episodes of just the podcast that they pre-record and then post up on Spotify for the listeners to then tune in as well, right? So that's why at the end he says the real ones know, the real listeners, the people who are listening to the Go Birds Radio, who are not just tuning in on a weekend to listen to the radio station, the people who are actually going to Spotify, searching for it, listening to it from start to finish. And this was something that they put at the end. So y'all know I am a real one on that pod. That's why I'm reacting to it here. But he's going to deliver this philosophical message for you. And on the other side, I'm going to react to it. So here it rolls.
All right, so here it is.
All right,
So
okay.
If you're never fully a finished product, then aren't you already a finished product? If you're never actually finished, then you kind of are what you are.
Being unfinished
There is no finished.
is your finish.
Yeah. If you're never a finished product, then you're already a finished product.
Well, you know, because you can get better. You're never going to get
finished.
You're never going to be finished.
But you're not finished, right?
So in reality, you're never finished.
Exactly.
Right.
So when someone says I'm never a finished product, then that's like saying like I'm never going to be like a blue whale. Like duh. Like I'm never going to be something, so there's no point in trying. Like then you are what you are. Like,
but
you
you're still getting better. I think the point of that is I am always striving to improve.
But maybe
and trying
that's
to improve,
what the finished
but
product
I will never
of a human is. A finished product of a human is just somebody that
could still
tries
be better than you were 2 days ago, a week ago, a year
or you
ago.
could be worse.
Sure,
Right.
I guess, but either way, you're not the same.
But so then if
you're not
never
a finished product because you're always changing.
right, but if you're
A
never
finished product is something that never changes. It is what it is
correct,
forever.
so nobody will ever be a finished product. Is my point. There's no perfect person.
Agree.
Right. So then to say you're never a finished product, like, yeah, because you never will be. So that means you are what you are to a certain extent. I don't mean in terms of like your personality can't change, but humans as their finished product are a forever evolving thing. Like you get better at things, you get worse at things. You have new legs and old legs. Like, so you're not finished. So like that, then you are finished.
But I get your point.
Like you are what you are.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't think you're finished in the sense of what we're talking about. Like, no, you're not finished. You will never be finished.
Correct.
But you're
means
still
you are.
moving towards finished. You're still becoming better. Or ideally, you're still getting better at things. You're still, next time Will Smith won't slap Chris Rock in the face. That's progress. And thus, you're not the product you were when you slapped Chris Rock in the face, but you'll never be perfect.
Correct. And since you'll never be perfect, then what you are is just something.
No.
Well, you're just something that's always changing. That's the finished product. That's it. That's the product. You're the product. And like you, James, like you will have things in your life that you'll get better at. Hopefully this is not the case, but there'll be things maybe you get worse at.
I get your point.
You'll have moments where you do something you regret. You'll have moments where you do a phenomenal thing. So you are finished. That's what you are. So like to say I'm never a finished product means you are finished.
No, so I get your point. I get what you're saying here, but the idea is like you're not finished. Like finished is stagnant. A finished product
Correct.
is right. So what we're talking about is not stagnant. Like I might do some things that are good, some things that are bad, but I could do more good than bad than I do right now. And thus, I'm different product in 5 years. If I have done more good than bad than I do right now, then I'm a different product than I was now, but I'm not a finished product.
But if you put it on the like finish line of being and that's a bad word to use because it's doubling up. But if you put like the ultimate goal of being finished, you'll never obtain that. So there is no finish. It's like saying
right.
It's
yes,
like saying I'll
that's
never.
the point of the saying. I'll never be
I
finished.
understand the point, but I'm saying it's like
but
saying
so
I'll
you're never
never
finished.
but like if you never finish the race, then there's no race. Do you see what I'm saying? Like if I say to myself, I'll never finish the race, then then there is no race because there's no finish.
There was
to it.
still a race. You
So
just
you're
didn't
keep
finish
running,
it, but someone else
But
could
it's
finish it.
nonstop then. Do you see what I'm saying? So like it's not actually.
But then it's not finished. Anything that's non-stopping is not finished. It's like a repeating
what I'm saying
number that
that-
goes forever. It just goes forever, but it's not done.
But
like,
that's the number then. Like so, I'm
but
saying.
right. The number is 3.333333333
Right.
forever.
Right. So that's but like so the point I'm saying is
It
if
will
you're-
never finish.
correct.
There
so
is no
if,
end point.
If I'm saying I'm never a finished product, that means like then you can't do it. Like it can't happen. So it's not. So there is no such thing as a finished product.
I think that's correct. Yes.
right.
But that doesn't mean that what you are now is finished. You know what I mean?
But what I'm but see you're and we can move on from this. But like
this might be the dumbest conversation
but
we've ever
it's
had.
interesting, right? like
That's for everyone else to judge.
yeah.
All right, now that you guys have heard both James and Eliot going back and forth regarding this philosophical question that Eliot delivered, meaning that we are constantly an unfinished product, so therefore we are a finished product, and I have this Rubik's Cube to make an analogy with that philosophical question that he has. But before I get into that, I want to point out that what I believe this year for the Eagles' upcoming draft, now that I'm on the radio here, I got a mic in front of me, and I'm talking Eliot Shorr-Parks, James Seltzer, Go Birds Radio. I want to put my Eagles take out there and what I think they're going to be doing in this upcoming draft. And what I think they're going to be doing is they have 3 first-round draft picks. And I believe what they should do is use one of those picks to trade for an elite receiver. It seems like that market is dwindling at this point, but there are still some options. Michael Thomas from the Saints. You have DK Metcalf from the Seahawks. And I think they should take one of those picks and trade them for a receiver. Use another pick to draft a young receiver or a defensive lineman, probably a defensive lineman if I had to guess, and then take another one of those first-round picks and trade it into next year, try to collect a first round for next year. That way, I love him. I am on the boat. Jalen Hurts is my guy, but if for some reason he does not pan out, he does not take that next leap, you are going to be going into the 2023 year looking for a quarterback, and you want to make sure you have the draft capital to be able to trade up in the first round or trade for a veteran quarterback who you believe can be your franchise guy for at least 5 years or more. So I think that with that draft capital, that's how they should utilize it. Don't utilize it all in 1 year where some people are like, draft 3 defensive players. They're not going to do that. You also have to allocate for the cap room that they have, and all first-round picks this year would be taking up a heavy portion of the remaining cap that they have to spend on players this year. So if you're going to waste that cap, you might as well waste it on a proven commodity on any position. It doesn't just have to be wide receiver. Whatever position that you feel like you could be filled on your defense or your offense with that draft capital, you should do it, right? And then save some cap for next year. Don't put all your chips into one basket and then actually draft a developmental guy. But now that you guys have heard that back and forth, as you can see, James Seltzer was not really on board with what Eliot was saying, because what James was saying was if you're unfinished, then you're never finished, because if you're constantly in beta, if you're constantly unfinished, you're constantly evolving, constantly growing, then how could you ever be finished? Because finished means no more, done. And what Eliot is saying is, sure, like we're constantly growing, constantly evolving, but as a result of that, like, isn't that in itself the finished product? And I got to thinking to myself, because I made an Instagram post a long time ago few years ago, back in 2019, about a Rubik's Cube. And a Rubik's Cube, as you guys can see here, it's not finished, and it just has all these different colors on all these different sides, many options. And I always use this as an example to be able to shape shift your perspective in life, understanding that, one perspective is one square on the Rubik's Cube, one little orange square, one little blue square, one little white square, one little green square. That is one perspective. And every time you shift it, you shift that perspective to a new spot, gaining a new perspective. And that's what I think something that Eliot is kind of alluding to. And I tweeted this at him this morning, that you have this physical Rubik's Cube here, and this physical Rubik's Cube itself is a finished product. This Rubik's Cube has been put through a product management team. It has been made in a factory, and this is the product that you buy on the shelf. It is a physical thing that is complete, but it is not complete because you're able to change it into different positions, so that way you could get the same side color on each side of the Rubik's Cube. And there are 6 sides. But even for someone, and you're probably thinking, but Mike, that finished product that is the Rubik's Cube, you can actually complete it. You can take the Rubik's Cube, match all 6 sides to their corresponding colors, and therefore that originally finished product that wasn't finished is now finished. But all you have to do is simply turn it around, make a couple turns, right? Readjust it, and that finished product becomes unfinished. And the way I relate that to life is, if you are working towards a promotion, or if you are working towards a goal, let's use the Go Birds radio as an example. There was a time when they were just working on a product to just get the first episode out, right? That was the completion of the Rubik's Cube, the ability to work on it and get that first episode out, right? You, Eliot, you, James, are the vessel, the catalysts, the Rubik's Cube. That is the product, but then you are constantly changing. And this is a really deep topic because it really opens up a can of worms. It opens up a rabbit hole to being able to discuss this philosophical stuff. But then after that first episode of Go Birds Radio, you start growing, you start gaining some listeners, you start putting out episode 2, episode 3, right? That first project is done, and you reset the Rubik's Cube. Now you're shape-shifting again to redo it, to complete the second project. Then you guys are sponsored by Parks Book and Casino, right? Partnering with a sports gambling company to go over sports, which is what you guys are talking about, sports every single day, right? And now you guys are trying to grow that brand of Go Birds Radio, and you're constantly working on a new project. Same thing with Christian Guzman and Alphalete. With Christian Guzman, his first project was to launch Alphalete Athletics. And then once he launched Alphalete Athletics, it was Alphalete the gym. Well, he had the gym, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, the gym came first, then it was the clothing line. And then after the clothing line, it was launching into a bigger warehouse, and a bigger warehouse after that, and then a bigger warehouse after that, and then going from U.S. delivery to international delivery, right? And each project is a new project, but it was still based on Alphalete Athletics. Same thing with Go Birds Radio, like, Go Birds, let's use not you, Eliot, not you, James, as the vessel. Let's use Go Birds as the vessel. That is the physical Rubik's Cube. But Go Birds is always constantly changing. But then it is you, James, it is you, Eliot, that are, and your team around you, of course, that are helping grow that brand. And even though the actual physical thing, Go Birds, is like a finished product, there's now products within the product, right? And that's how I view the Rubik's Cube, is you have this one physical object. And once you complete it, it's done. That's one project. That is just one. And then you're like, okay, well, we did that, right? So let's do it again, but with a new goal in mind, but still based on the overarching foundation or the overarching theme that is Go Birds Radio. And I know that you guys are more so referring to humans, right? So humans, we still are like, we're not a finished product ever. Like, we're not. And maybe some people complete the Rubik's Cube and let it go. They stop. They put it on a shelf, and that's that. It's completed its final form. And there are some people who, unfortunately, like, They reach their final form, they peak, and that is that, right? But you hope at some point as humans, the vessel, the human that is a finished product, the human, that they are constantly going back to this Rubik's Cube and saying, how can I change it? How can I readjust it? How could I make a better product? Okay, I just completed this little small task. It looks like it's completed. Well, let's go do it again, but have a different goal in mind. So us as humans, like, we're never finished, ever. And I agree with James, because James' argument in this little philosophical question that Eliot had was, if we are never finished, how could we technically be a finished product? And that is where the interesting question lies, because as we are unfinished, constantly evolving, finish line means finish. Like, you've crossed the line, it's done, it's over. But I think that the Rubik's Cube allows you to see like a physical object that has multiple, and complex perspectives. And that goes back to the CoStar app, where it said there is not one single truth, but rather there are layers of complexities to that truth. And you as a person, you are the single truth. You literally are the truth. But there's so many complexities to you, and you could just make one little turn on the Rubik's Cube, and you've evolved backwards or forwards. In that case, you could say you've devolved. But either way, you have still shape-shifted an unfinished product. It's one step forward and 2 steps back. Okay? But there's so many complexities to it all, so many layers, that when you finally come back to the fundamental roots of what it is you're doing, it's like the product and the project continue to evolve from the same original foundation. But what is interesting is, let's consider a company like Tesla. Elon Musk one day is going to die, right? That's just the natural cycle of life. But this thing that he gave his entire life to, right? Whether it's SpaceX or Tesla, he's going to die one day, but that project, that product, it is going to continue to live on after him. And even when he is finished, his life is done, the work that he created from an extension of himself is never done, right? So that's where it's so mind-boggling, because I could see both sides, right? Like, if we're unfinished, and that's Eliot's point, like, if we're constantly in this cycle of being unfinished, that is the product, right? Imagine you have a race car track. Like, you constantly go around that race car track over and over and over and over. But the race car track is the product. Like, that is the product right there. But it's the constant going around and getting around to the finish line. That is the process that is constantly unfinished. And eventually you do come to a finish line in that race, right? And you win. And that's your life. Your life, you eventually hit a finish line where you live no more. But then from that race, from that win, from the prize money, from the accolades, from the media attention, that brings on a goal, another goal in mind, to constantly keep evolving to another racetrack, to another venture in life. And that's where it gets so mind-boggling, is like, James, I hear you, man. I hear you, brother. Like, if you are constantly unfinished, how is that ever a finished product? But conceptually, what Eliot is saying is, this Rubik's Cube, physically, the physical object, it technically is finished. But what you can do with that Rubik's Cube, the amount of times you can complete it and redo it and complete it again, it's never finished. Because as I said earlier, even when that Rubik's Cube is complete once and put on a shelf for display because, woo, I completed a Rubik's Cube, that's dope, you're one day, more than likely, whether it's you or someone else, is going to take that already completed object, the physical square that is the Rubik's Cube, and they're going to readjust it and restart it and try to do it themselves. And therefore, it's not unfinished. But they're doing an unfinished project on an already finished product. So that's really what it is. The product, us, the vessel, the human, we're finished. But the projects that we do to make that product better is ever evolving, forever evolving. It is forever changing, and it's forever unfinished. But we're always finished as a result of being unfinished. So I find this super fascinating. Again, let's go back to the Eagles. Go Birds, right? Go Birds. Philadelphia Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. They are an organizational franchise. Philadelphia Eagles themselves, they are a physical entity, right? They are an LLC. They are a business. They are finished. But the things that they do to make that business better, to have a better long-lasting rapport with the fan base and a better notoriety globally and forever, like not just globally, but also generationally, they constantly are doing things to maintain a winning record. They are doing things so that they can win a Super Bowl. The more Super Bowls they win, like look at the New England Patriots. Prior to New England Patriots having Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, they were a pretty shit franchise. And then they got Brady and they got Belichick and they started winning a whole ton. And it was that evolution of having these new people in the building for a product that was pretty shitty to only make that product better. So even though the product of the New England Patriot product was always complete on a foundational basic level, the logo changed, the colors changed, the jerseys changed, the players changed, ownership changed, coaches within the organization changed, and now Brady and Belichick, Brady's gone, Belichick's still there. It's changing again. They have Mac Jones in there. But the product of being a New England Patriot is the product. But the projects every day, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, bi-yearly, decade worth is constantly changing. And that's what you are as a human. Eliot Shorr-Parks, my man, you, the person, are finished. James, you, the person, are finished. Because you're James Seltzer, you are Eliot. But everything that you do moving forward as a byproduct of you is going to continue to change so you could be better, so you can continue to have a generational legacy attached to your name, whether that's globally, locally, or simply in your family. You are constantly going to work on yourself to be better known and better appreciated as a loving person, as someone who was really good at their job and made noise in your industry. So that's my thought process on that. I hope that works. And as I'm talking, I feel like it's super deep. There's, like I said, it's complexities. There's not a single truth to all this. That's why this Rubik's Cube is so important, because there's so many perspectives that you could have regarding this. And I hope that you guys listening to this right now can reflect on what I'm saying and be like, yeah, Mike, I agree with you. Or Mike, I don't agree with you. And Mike, I agree with you, but here's an extra thought. Or Mike, I don't agree with you, and here's why. Like, support why you don't agree, or support why you do, and give me a new perspective. Because when you have that adaptation, that's what Charles Darwin said. Like, it's not the strongest to survive, it's not the smartest to survive, it's those most willing to adapt. Like, you are you, and you have to adapt. You have to produce. You have to get better if you want to live a long, healthy, sustainable lifestyle. Eliot, shout out to you. You're X amount of days from your wedding, and you want to be sustainable. You want to look good for the wedding, fit in the suit, look tailored. And right now, you are going through a project that you have to do to take steps forward to make yourself better. But you, Eliot, yourself are a finished product. But the things you're doing are not. So open up my perspective. Change the Rubik's Cube for me. Come to me with some ideas, because I'm super excited to hear about them. And with that being said, guys, that is episode number 20. And I will see you guys in episode number 21. And as always, move with purpose and live with a purpose to serve a purpose. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.